So, there are a few things that I've learned regarding intercultural communications and many areas in which I personally have felt. I've been blessed to be able to travel to a lot of different places, including Central America, Mexico, Puerto Rico, and soon to Italy. So, I have put together a list of things and I meshed it together with some of the notes from this week's module in regarding areas in which I think we can all improve in our communication. So the first one being is to expand your vocabulary. This is something that I already currently do. Is I love to read books and magazines and everything, and I do try to alternate between English and Spanish, just to try to learn new words and learn their meaning and how to use them. And more importantly, to learn how to use them in the right context. Because it's one thing to know what a word means. Because you read it in a dictionary, and then it's completely different if you know how to use it in context. Because if you don't, you're gonna sound silly, and it's just gonna sound like it's just not gonna be very understandable whenever you're talking to somebody else. Another thing that I think is important is to be alert to trigger words. Now, this is a big one because I've experienced it myself. Well, with my mother. She is actually from El Salvador, which is a small country right underneath Mexico. And there's this one particular word that in her country it means like to molest someone. That's kind of the definition for it. And people here in Odessa use that word a lot, but it's a slang word. It's not an official word here. It's a slang word, and here it's something positive. It's kind of like, I think it means to trust someone. So my mother was having this conversation one time with this lady, and she used this word, which I'm not going to say because it's disrespectful to my mother. But she used this word, and my mother automatically became very defensive, like, why are you talking to me like that? And the lady was just so confused, like, what did I do wrong? But it, like, after so much talking, they understood what each other was meaning, and it's just like, wow, like, one little word can have a very different meaning in two different places. So I think it's important, if we know that someone is not from here, to try not to use slang words because they might not know what it means, or even worse, like in my mother's situation, it could mean something bad in their country. Another thing is to be conscious of stereotypes, and I think this is something that most people I know are probably working on, is to not be swayed by stereotypes. Like, not all white people are racist, not all Mexicans are illegal, yada yada yada. Everyone knows all this, but I think sometimes the idea stays in our mind, and it can create barriers whenever we talk to people. So I think it's important for us to be non-judgmental and be open whenever we meet someone that looks different than us and talks different than we do, that believes different things than we believe. It's also important to match the communication level, especially if their accent is very thick, kind of like in my mother's situation where she's Salvadorian and it's very obvious that she's not from here. It's important for us to be able to match the communication level. A lot of people think that being a good communicator is about being able to talk to a lot of people and say awesome words and fancy words and to sound super smart. But I think a better aspect of a good communicator is to be able to know what a person's English fluency is, and to be able to match it. Like, if you know that you're talking to someone that's not from here, you're not going to use great fancy words because they're not going to understand it, and it's just going to become a barrier. And a lot of times, these people are embarrassed to ask for you to repeat it again, and I think it's respectful for you to try to match their communication level, like I said. Last but not least is, I think it's important to use body language. There was this one foreign exchange student that I encountered, and she couldn't understand the difference between uh-huh and uh-uh. So it's like, hey, are you hungry? And she'd be like, uh-uh. And I'm like, what do you mean? Uh-uh. Like, it's uh-uh. Shake your head side to side. Had she not done this, every time I would have asked her, like, hey, are you hungry? It would have been like, uh-uh. It would be like, oh, she said uh-uh, so she's not hungry. But the fact that she was, nodding her head, I'm like, oh, wait, so you are hungry. Like, it makes you say things twice so that they understand what you're saying. So I think body language is very important. I think it's important to, smile if you're saying something positive, and whenever you're speaking to someone of a different culture, like, hey, we do take your insurance. Do you want to set an appointment? Like, that doesn't look very positive, but then, like, if you use your body, like, okay, here you go. We do take your insurance. Would you like to set an appointment? That's, like, changes everything because it's like, okay, she's smiling. I don't understand what she said, but I think they do take my insurance. So let's go ahead and do it. So I think body language is a big thing, plays a big role in communication. So all in all, I think these are all very important things for all of us to work on if we plan on engaging in more open, more effective communication with people that are not from West Texas.